listen, I don't care what you think. I work for Orlando. He's not going to go for that much money. You better double, if not triple that offer. And I got some very crazy and not very happy Mexicans on the other side of the line. But at the end of the day, we got good money for him.
Hello and welcome back to Forever a Lion. This is an Orlando City podcast all about the people of Orlando City. We dive into their stories and find out why they love the club so much and what their story is around Orlando and how they came to be a part of the club we love so much. So settle in and grab a beverage and let's talk some Orlando City. I've got a very special guest today, someone who recently left the club but has put in many years of servitude doing one of the most difficult jobs in the club. We are honored here to have with us today Luiz Muzzi. Luiz, welcome to the podcast and thank you for being here.
No, thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here and talking to everybody. Let's do this.
For those of you who don't know, could you kind of tell everybody who you are and what your relationship to Orlando City is?
Sure. I joined the club at the beginning of 2019. In a very simple way, I was responsible for all soccer operations for Orlando City. You can pick a title. Some people will say it's the sporting directors, GM, which was officially my title, GM, something related to vice president, executive, all of that, big names, but a very summarized way of putting it is that I was responsible for the team and for everything related to the team on the soccer side. Not on the commercial side, on the sporting side for Orlando City, not for Orlando Pride, just for Orlando City.
I mean, a really big, responsible job, head of the soccer ops, like you said. Call it whatever you want. GM is the colloquial term that kind of is the easiest one because everybody has all of these different nomenclatures at the top. But essentially, like you said, in charge of all the players and recruitment and everything there. How did that come about? So what was kind of your first memory or your first encounter with Orlando City?
Yeah, so I was at FC Dallas before doing the same thing. I've always wondered about Orlando because at the time it was a Brazilian owned club. And you probably know that I was born in Brazil and Brazilian. And I always wondered how I never had a stronger connection with Orlando City up until one day that I got approached after I believe they did all the normal things they have to do to ask for permission, all of that with FC Dallas. I was in a good position there. I had just renewed my contract, but I talked to Alex Town at the time, who was telling me about all the good things that Orlando had and all the things that were not working on the pitch. And I was always very curious about the club because I saw exactly that. I saw a club that every time Dallas came here, it was a packed house. There was a lot of community support, a lot of fans, Kai at the time, all of that. And so I got very curious about the opportunity. And the more we talked, the more I realized that it made sense for me and my family to come here and try to make something out of that situation. That I got to choose my words. And I know there's a lot of people. It's not an easy job, right? So it's easy to say things are not working, whatever. There's so many things that you cannot control. And you can have the best of intentions. And sometimes it's just, I don't like to use luck either. I like to use chance, which are things that happen that, sometimes it's just outside of your control. But I thought there was a great opportunity coming to Orlando. I've spent most of my life here in Florida. I attended the University of Florida. I'm a Gator fan. Pretty close. I got a chance to take my young son to go to some Gator games, which it's easy to make him a basketball fan these days, not a football fan, but we got all the connections here. So yeah, that's how it came about. And beginning of 2019, I started my position with Orlando City with the support of some people that they're still in the club, like Ricardo Moreira, of course, Joe Shushman. I mean, unbelievable. I don't know if you guys talked to Joe. I would
I know
recommend.
Joe from when I worked there. That's how long Joe's been there.
Yeah, Joe is a legend, man.
Yeah.
I think you should talk to Joe.
Yeah,
He's gonna
that's a
give you a
tough Joe.
very New York kind of, he's a guy that every
You don't
club.
mess with Joe on the sideline. I'll tell you, when Joe gets riled up, you can see it, you
Oh
know?
yeah, oh yeah. And some other guys like Aryeh, who's been, he was an intern and was a long time intern. Has a big passion for the club. We had a chance to bring a coaching staff after the new coaching staff after the first year. But there's some true legends in the club. Nick Santos has been around forever. Gio and the stadium. It's a lot of good people, and I'm happy that things worked out.
So you kind of saw this club from the outside first, and you saw, the potential of what it was, and then you got the job in early 2019. What was it like when you kind of first stepped through the doors and then started to see, behind the scenes? What did you feel about like what you inherited and the kind of job that you then had in front of you? How did you go about those early days?
Yeah, that's funny because every time you open the hood, right, and you see what's below, there's always something different, right, or more. And of course, I usually say, those jobs are not open if everything is perfect and everything is nice. You're not going to get recruited for a position where everything is working great, right? There's a reason why they want you to take the job. So you got to have patience, time to understand everything. It was a very stressful time. I remember when we signed Nani the first couple months, and he came in, and we're still training at Sylvan at the time, the old Sylvan, right? Not the one that is now, the Pride is there now, but it's a much better place now. At that time, it was still like messy, it was difficult to work there. And we say, let's don't take Nani to the training facility. Let's take him to the stadium. After he signs, then we go to the training facility. But I can only imagine Kaká here training at the Sylvan, which was challenging, right? It was early days, but I think it took some time to just get to know people, the culture of the club. You can't come in right away trying to change things and do things your way, and that really takes time, which is something that, funny enough, maybe not funny, but that's part of the American culture, right? People here actually do have patience, right? You just say, you put a label like rebuilding, and people understand that it takes time. As I look at my home country, and you got a month and forget it. You lost 3 games, go to the next job, get out of here. You know, so I think that's a good thing about overall sports culture in the United States. It's been changing. It used to be like, oh, you have 3 years. It's not like that anymore. Now you have time, but it's not as much time. But yeah, I think 2019 was a good year for understanding what the club is all about and kind of seeing what things needed to be changed. Again, I had amazing people with Ricardo and Joe and Eric as well, who is not with the club anymore. Eric Ustruck, who was a big part of everything. So yeah, that was 2019.
Do you remember that first player you signed in 2019?
So it was funny because I was actually hired in November of 2018, right at the
Right, yeah.
beginning of the month. But then my agreement with Dallas was that, I'm not going to let you guys, it's a difficult time, right? You're trying to sign players, and it's, I'm not going to let you hang in. So this 2 months, I'm going to continue doing my job, which is also funny because usually people don't want you there, right? You're going to another club, so get out of here. But I think that the Hunt family and I still have a great relationship with them. And Dan Hunt knows that, or at the time knew that he could trust me to do the job, even though I was already working for Orlando. So back in the day, if you do a Google search, you see like Luiz Muzzi is doing 2 jobs as a GM. And there's a funny story because before I was actually hired, Nikki Budulich, who was the GM at the time, was working a trade for Tesho. Remember Tesho Akindele from Dallas? So I went into Dan Hunt's office and I go, Dan, that one is the only one that I can't do. I can't trade Tesho to myself, You take care of that. I can't be
It
on
looks
both sides
shady.
of the
It looks too
transaction.
shady.
Yeah, but then for Orlando, I guess one of the first things that I remember was Jotun. Remember the Peruvian player that we had?
Mhm.
And apparently had a deal with the club that he actually got sold to Cruz Azul. And then I looked at the deal and I said, man, this is not nearly enough to move this player. And then I called the guy and he's like screaming at me. I was still at lunchtime in Dallas, right? I just called from my car and I go, listen, I don't care what you think. I work for Orlando. He's not going to go for that much money. You better double, if not triple that offer. And I got some very crazy and not very happy Mexicans on the other side of the line. But at the end of the day, we got good money for him. It was a good move. But I remember those crazy days of doing Dallas stuff during the day, taking a lunch break, 1 hour in my car, trying to make things work for Orlando, get home, and continue doing Orlando stuff. We did a trade with for João Moutinho, remember it right away,
Hmm.
who was the number one pick the year before, and we traded with LAFC. At the time, we had already brought in Kyle Smith, which was, got to give credit to the guys that were doing that they got him in the USL and he's still here, or he was still here. I don't know what the current status is, but yeah. And so those things. I mean, we started talking about Juan to bring him and the right back. I was already in Orlando in January when we decided to go for Robin
Hmm.
Janssen. At the time, we had 3 or 4 center backs that were trying to decide, and we say this is the guy. And great story. 1 year won the title. The year before, he was working on a horseshoe factory in Sweden. And there was a lot of smart scouting at the time, led by Ricardo, without the actual tools that we do have today. Today, we have a lot more data, a lot more. That was really more like the eye, watching a lot of tape and seeing what players would fit what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a few of the sort of ones that I would say are more famous under your tenure, like Robin Jansen. I think definitely stands out as one of the best signings you ever made. A great story for him, like you said, of the eye, right? He's not one that's going to stand out in the stats. You went out and found him in his market and brought him to a completely different market to show what he can do. Kyle Smith, another one that like he's got to be probably one of the best in terms of value. Brought him here from Louisville. He's put in so many great shifts over the years, a veteran of the team that like many years people say, oh, Kyle Smith, is this the end for him? And look, he's still here, right? So I think sometimes these players that aren't the biggest and flashiest can often be the ones that bring the most longevity, or are just doing those jobs that aren't always so flashy and as big a signing as like your Facu Torres is, but often are maybe the ones that you might remember more.
Yeah, there was I remember some great stories, like when we brought Mendes, Sebastian
Yeah,
Jackson
Seba.
Mendes, and it was I remember it was Christmas Day, and I'm actually in Brazil and trying to get that done. There was Atlético Paranaense from Brazil had a deal already for him, and I hijacked that deal in such a way. I'm not even going to mention how, but I did, and he was at the airport already going to Brazil, and called me the next morning and said, I'm not. I didn't go. I'm like, I want to go to Orlando. We needed to go for younger guys, and Mendes had some national team in Ecuador coming up. Young star. There was Santiago Patinho, our pick that came from our academy, and I felt like we had a number three, right, the pick in the draft. And to be fair, I don't know if we would have used that on Santi, on Patinho, but the message was almost as important, more important than the player, right? The message was, we're not going to let our young guys get away, right? Our guys from our academy. The league did not give us homegrown rights in him for whatever reason. We actually got in trouble for that, for going on the media and saying that the league had done us wrong. And, I shouldn't have done that. I needed to send a strong message right at the beginning. I also remember, and this is something that I'm very, very high on, is the academy, as you know, right? And I came in, and one of the first questions that I asked was like, okay, somebody give me the top 2 prospects that we have in the academy, and nobody could give me a name. I'm like, are you guys for real? I mean, give me 2 guys, give me 2 prospects, right? I mean, the whole thing that happened at the time with OCB and the academy not being really Orlando City. That was not Orlando City. It was somebody else, right? That didn't work. And I think that you didn't ask me that question, but if you do, that's one of the things that I'm most proud of, is how we created, not created, but how the academy became something, right? From like totally not respected and people just like, yeah, whatever, Orlando City, to what it is today. And you see Alex Freeman and Gusky and and Taifi and all those guys coming. And I think the academy today is at a tipping point that you're going to see a lot of those talents. Yeah,
Just had Bitelo on here telling us all about his team, and I know that you can see the growth. You know, you can see the level of OCB. You can see all the U17 players out there for their national teams, etc. But it wasn't always that way, and I remember when you're talking about in the early days where it wasn't actually owned by the club, and a lot of people don't realize that. But for years, it was using the brand of Orlando City, but it wasn't controlled by Orlando City and was its own entity, and really just needed to be, unified and creation of that pyramid. And that's really what, if I look back at this time and people talk about your legacy here, I think a lot of it, I will say, will be the creation of our actual academy and that pyramid system to create a pathway. So please, yeah, tell us more about what it took to actually build out the youth club of Orlando City and make it competitive, because we were really not for many
yeah,
years. And we were not, I mean, like Tommy Redding, no offense to the guy, but he was our best academy product and he barely ever played an MLS minute. So how do you go from that to Alex Freeman
yeah.
is my
It's a long
question.
process, right? It's lots of stories about that. But at the time, some good hirings like Marcelo Nevelef, who left already, and brought Javier Carrillo with him. And Javier became the academy director and still with the club today. And great people. They turned it around. One of the big things too was when we went to the new facility, right? I don't know if many people know, but the original plan was when you go to OHP, there are like two locker rooms, but we made had some construction around, but the plan was to move everybody, right? In Orlando City and the Pride, right? But what I saw at Sylvan was like, it was, the interaction is great, being together is great, but there's got to be some degree of separation, right? You have to be together but separate, right? And at Sylvan, we had one team watching video, the other team walking by, going to the gym, eating. You walked into the medical place, and there was like two Pride players, one City player. It's like all mixed and matched, and it was not really conducive to growing the club. So I said, listen, if you guys can just change the plans. Instead of bringing the Pride, let's bring the Academy and OCB, because that's key, having everybody in the same facility. Day in and day out, you can see everybody. You can have players training with the first team. You can stay, you can watch practice. So many things that being together brings, right? And then they actually approved that, as you know, made some good construction remodeling of Sylvan for the Pride, which became a very usable place, which was not before. And then you took away a team, right? So now it's like it belongs to the Pride. It's their own place. That was difficult because for an ownership group to approve like two training facilities, that was really difficult. But I think that was key, absolutely key in changing the academy and getting the academy to where it is today. Really. And then other things that we got the top two age groups training in the morning, which is something that still don't see in a lot of clubs around. And you ask, like, okay, how about school? Well, this is pre-pandemic, right? People were not used yet to all this homeschooling and all of that. But we go, now we're going to start our school here. Let's do schooling here. So these guys come, they train, they eat, they go to school, they go back, they do video, they stay here. And I think that's a very simple recipe for the academy. You just gotta add the right people, the right environment, all of that, which is simple but not simple. But that's I think the short story of the academy.
And I think it's going to be exciting. I know they're working on the plans to now add in Orlando Pride and do a, major rebuild and reshuffle on what, OHP looks like, so that you can have all of that plus add in, the next level, which is having residential, the ability to bring players over from other countries at a young age and have housing for them and have that kind of ability to bring them into the Orlando City umbrella at a young age, and then they become a homegrown player. et cetera. Is that kind of where you think the next steps are, or how do we then, I guess I'm asking, take the academy to the next level?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, bringing the pride in now is great because that's the my concept of together but separate, right? Imagine a facility that you get in, you have your commercial building in the middle, and then you go right and you have the city, you go left, you have the pride. They're together. They can share all the good things, but they're not interacting in a way that Sylvan was really not good. It was not good. And for the academy having residency, it's a different environment today, right? I'm not even going to go as far as saying that's for international players. But back in the day, or a couple of years ago, you couldn't go to Miami to get a player. You couldn't go to Dallas, Chicago, LA. There was territorial protection, which doesn't exist anymore, right? Every academy can protect, 45 players. That number may go down. You go around the country and you can bring some very good. By the way, Alex Freeman is from Miami. I don't know if you know that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
but
guys went
at
and
the
found it.
time
They
we
didn't. They
worked
didn't
out.
sign him up, right? They
Yeah, we
just let him
traded. We
go.
traded for his
You
rights.
traded. Okay.
Yeah, we traded Ascona. Remember Ascona, the
I don't
uh,
remember him. No.
Dominican national team player too. That would
Well,
wanted.
good trade.
Yeah,
Definitely
well,
worth it, I
traded
think.
that worked out. Today, that I see that residency more for our internal recruiting, right? International, you always have the problem that until you're 18, you can't really play, right? So you bring a 15-year-old kid. Sure, it can be the parents are moving for reasons not related to soccer. You got to prove that to FIFA, right? It's got to be real. So you got to find a case too, but you're not going to find a whole lot of players. But you may bring like a 17-year-old who is 8, 9, 6 months away from turning 18, and you got that time that you can work with the player. When he turns 18, then he can join or play official games. And that's of course it's good. I think the residency is something that we've been what I got to stop saying we, right? But something that for a long time, it's still we. I still feel it, right? But
It's always we,
yeah, man,
a
it's like
little bit.
you can't.
Yeah.
And so the residency is really important for the academy.
And then you feel like when we get to that point in terms of comparison to other, academies around the world, we've seen like the GA Cup, they just won it this year. I feel like when you put us up against some of the top European academies, the MLS ones are getting close to that level. Do you see that? Do you feel like the right things are happening here at the youth level?
Yeah, I think there's amazing growth. You see the World Cup is always a catalyst for new, better things. Yeah, I was here in '94. I remember, I remember 1990 when I came to this country. Actually, was the year that I moved here, and it was a World Cup year in Italy, and I couldn't find a game on TV. Where are the games? You couldn't find a game. You had to go to bars with those big satellite antennas. You had like 85th minute back and forth game. Sorry, we got to break for a commercial. What? They break for a commercial. They come back and it's like, oh, we just want to let you know that this team scored and it's now 2-1. I go, what the? So 94 was that I, almost like, I don't want to say creation because it was not, right? We had the NASL before. We had some great times in this country before. I just think that's something else that people like to bash on and say bad things. But the MLS model was absolutely necessary in this country. It went through bad times. I don't know how many people know the lawsuit that the players had at the end of '99. If they win that, the league is over right there. They didn't even know that. They're just fighting for something that would have been the end, right? And then again, when there was the Miami Fusion and the Tampa Bay Mutiny and that big meeting that they say who is in, who is out, and and you got to thank the guys, the Anschutz and the Hunts and Kraft that actually saved the league. But we went through some very turbulent times, and if this model is not in place, we wouldn't be here today. So people are very, very quick to point fingers and say, this is not soccer. We're never going to grow and stuff. We got here because of that model.
I think a lot of the time we look at the restrictions now of MLS as like a negative thing, but they were the safety wheels that got the league to this point. It's just growth, right? It gets to the point where there maybe we need to now start spending a little bit more on the whole. I want to ask you, I know there's so many mechanics within MLS. I feel like, I've read a lot about them and I still don't have nearly enough understanding about all of the different ins and outs and roster assignments and what kind of contracts you're on and TAM and GAM and all of these different mechanics. Do you feel like you kind of need a degree in just MLS alone? Because like your regular GM from Europe is not going to be able to be a GM in
And
MLS.
that happens all the time, right? You got some great people that came from Europe and just didn't work out here because you remember when the Dutch people came to Toronto, the Vinta, and it was a coach and he wanted to sign some players and he couldn't understand why can't I. But yes, you need a degree. The regulations are like this, and every page, by the way, ends with to the discretion of the leagues. But the league, to give him credit, they have been cleaning up in an amazing way. That the work that they do at the league level is amazing. People again like to bash. It's uh, the NFL, by the way, lost money for 50 years. The NFL did not make money until year whatever. We're in year 30 here. I'm not saying that we're going to continue to lose money but it's easy to say you got billionaire owners that, nobody wants to lose money, man. But they're not rich by accident, right? They're very, very savvy business people. It's easy for us to say, spend more money, put more money. They are spending a lot of money. I can maybe shouldn't, but for the Wolves, they put a lot of money, man. A lot of money. Every time I hear somebody saying the Wolves are cheap, they're not cheap, man. They're good owners. They're really good owners. And they put a lot of money. The fact that they came in, they let us sign Facundo right away. That was a big, expensive signing at the time. But again, they don't want to lose money. Nobody does. But I think that the next step in MLS is happening right now. With the calendar change, that's a big change. And again, people don't understand. This has been discussed, and it's been on a table for a year and a half, 2 years. Again, Nelson Rodriguez at the league level, what a job. And nobody does anything alone, right? I understand that. And I told him, without Nelson, I don't know if this happens because everything that was done, there was like 50 subcommittees, right? One group of people just studying the weather. Okay, we can't have just one committee because the Northeast is completely different from okay, let's split that into 3 committees. There was so many different things. No stones got unturned. It was like everybody was, and there are no decisions without trade-offs, right? That we know that there's something that is not going to be as easy as before. We're not going to get to summer games where the family is on vacation, all that. Sure, we're going to get other things. So opening up next, there's going to be some realignment, divisions, conferences, table, which is actually good too. I think the playoffs are going to change again, which I don't know if that's good because every couple of years, 3 years, you change your playoffs. The best of three, people don't like that too much. I don't like it. But I think that we're going in the right way. Now, the actual question, are we going to open up and spend more money? You can spend a lot of money today. You can have 3 DPs. You can have 3 under-22s with pretty much unlimited money. Can we get more? Well, right now, there's only a couple clubs using all of that. So then the trade-off question comes back, right? Are we willing to be a Real Madrid-Barcelona league? Are we okay if one club like a Bayern Munich wins the title for 10 straight years? Are we okay with that? Or do we want to be a league that at the beginning of the year, anybody has a chance to win, right? Which is a very, very American concept as well, right? The worst team gets the first round pick, gets the first pick. All of that, in our case, in MLS's case, gets more allocation money, gets advantages, right? I don't know if you remember last year when got the opener against the Philadelphia Union. We said, okay, we got a weak team to open up. Great. Nobody gave anything to the Union this year, and they won the Supporters Shield. It's like, and that is not uncommon. So again, trade off. Are we willing to have a dominant Miami, LAFC, New York league, and nobody else? And those three will win titles for 15 years. Are we good with that? If we are, that's a trade off, right? But if not, if we want to have competitive balance, we need some rules, right? To make sure that at the beginning of the year, anybody can win. So trade offs.
I agree. I mean, we got to figure out that balance, right, of how to keep MLS MLS, but also make it more competitive. You talked about the calendar shifts. I want to hear from you as a GM. We hear a lot the fact that it's to do with the transfer windows. I would imagine that's most of the thinking of why they want to do this. Can you explain just quickly why it's so crucial and what you think the effect of making that change will be?
Yeah, I mean, it aligns with Europe in the sense that their window is open until the last day of August or first day of September. But that's when the season's going to start, right? And they want to get good players. They come here. We had that in Orlando, right? We had offers for, and again, people again will say ownership is all about money. They're not, because we've had offers for Facundo, for Cesar, for many players in July and August, and we go like, we can't sell. It's the final stretch, and we have sporting goals above commercial goals, right? If you look at the Orlando City pillars and Pride, Orlando City and Pride, the Orlando organization pillars, above everything, there's winning championships. That's above the financial pillar, all the other ones. And so the decision was, sorry, we can't sell those guys. We can't. We just can't, because we have sporting goals. And now with that alignment, you can, and you have time to replace that player, right? You have time. Something very smart is our transfer window will close after the European window, right? So once that window is done, we know that they're not going to get anybody else, and we still have time to get players to replace, right? It will also allow you to get out of contract players in Europe, players that are willing to come, because if you go try to get somebody in January, maybe those guys will say, man, I'm in the middle of something here. I don't want to go, And on top of everything, when you get a player in July, August with whatever, 9, 10 games to go, it's really difficult to adapt. MLS, I used to say that MLS is not better, it's not worse, it's different. It's very different. It takes time to adapt. I'll give you two examples. Remember Mauro Diaz in Dallas?
Yeah,
Mauro Diaz came
great
in the
player.
summer window. His first 5 months, I mean, he was on the bench. Same thing with Mauricio Pereira here, which I didn't mention.
Hmm.
Mauricio Pereira, big signing for us at the time. He came in, he didn't play that much. It takes time to adapt. So you're getting somebody at the beginning of your season, you have a much better success rate. So there are many things that work well with this calendar change. Again, there are trade-offs. Yeah, you're going to play some games in cold weather in some places. Not too many, because the calendar is going to be made in a way they have more games in Texas, Florida, LA. So, and then the playoffs are going to be in May, which uninterrupted at a time where there's not a lot of competition. So there are many good things. There are trade-offs, but there are many good things.
Yeah, I was the idea of unregistered players in like the Premier League or La Liga that their registration closes and then that player's not being registered or definitely knows they're not in the plans, then they're really open to that move to MLS and our window's still open. I can imagine we're going to get a lot of bargain kind of deals done that way with players that really just want to go play and they know that this is their last chance in the season. So I'm very excited about it. I think it's going to do big things for this league. I'm sure if you're a Montreal fan, you're probably less excited, but like you said, there has to be trade-offs. All right, talking about Orlando City, I want to ask you a few questions here. What is your favorite off-field memory? So this is not anything that happened on the field, but behind the scenes, maybe something to do with the academy or staff, or just a really great moment?
That's a tough one because they're always related to some field,
Well, I'm going to
something
ask
that
you
happened,
that
right?
next, so you can save that one for the next
That
question.
yeah, you can't say the Open Cup. If that's the next question, I'll say the Open Cup. I think it's the day in and day out. You can't really pick one moment. But, I think that we got something that we're not just business, and there are a lot of clubs that are, and a lot of people that are, and that's part of who you are as a person, as a club, as an entity club, right? You have a culture, and our culture is very friendly, for better or for worse, right? Sometimes for worse because we're too friendly, right? And some people that they just make decisions, and they don't think about the human side. They don't think about, we do, right? For better and for worse, again, right? Because sometimes, and people say, why don't you just like do that, and why are you worrying about that? But we do. It's who we are. It's who I am. It's who we are. And we define that as a part of our culture, right? And that may be the reason why some people want to come here, because they know that that's who we are. So, I think that having that relationship day in and day out, being able to talk to people as, this is not just someone you work with, or this is not just a player that you're going to call into your office and say, pack your bags and go to whatever, because we did it a couple of times, but it's not who we are. We like to talk to people and say, hey, would this work for your family? Is this something good for you? Listen, I mean, we had a tough conversation last year with Nicola Data, right? An unbelievable guy, an unreal person. His family, his son is friends with my son, right? My son was crying for days here when he left.
Said,
But
Dad, what have you done?
yeah, but he's a guy that you can bring into the office and have a conversation, right? And there are things that we're going to say that will be tough, and maybe I'm not going to like, or he's not going to like. But if we understand that we are professionals, everything is good, right? I pick up the phone today, I talk to Nico, he talks to me. We have a great, even I want to say friendship, right? But yeah, we had tough conversations. As long as it's not, yo, come in and pack your bags and you got to go, right? Because that's who we are. I think that's the day to day, is the memories that you take.
I like that. Okay, and now the easier one, your favorite on-field memory.
Open Cup. It's interesting because the cup culture here is not fully developed, right? If you go anywhere in Europe or in South America and you say you won the cup, it's a big deal. By the way, in Brazil now, again, my home country, the federation just changed that the Brazilian championship will end now, and then the cup semifinals will be played after that. That's your top, but it's like winning the cup at the end of the season, right? A FA Cup in Wembley, you know, that's something. Look, I got goosebumps just by thinking about that. So winning the cup was something. It was so major. I said that's the first major league title in this city, right? It is. I know that the Lion that we got some USL titles before into a major league, but
No, it was major. Yeah, it was.
I'm not. This can't sound. I'm not taking away anything from the pride that there was a big thing like last year, right? That this is the big, which was unbelievable. By the way, the change with the pride, unreal, unreal. And again, I want to get Haley Carter. Again, what a person and professional, and I'm seeing her go now. I don't know what they're gonna do, but those are big shoes to fill. Big, unreal. And so, yeah, Open Cup, I think that the bubble was a great experience for what it was, right? It was a bad situation because
Yeah.
the world was in a bad place with COVID all around. I think that here in Florida, we didn't really get to see the worst of it. You look at some places up north and all of that, and people will have different memories than the ones we have here. But I think the bubble, and we spent 54 days in there. We were the second team to arrive, even though it was all local, but we were the second team to arrive, and we made it all the way to the final. And that was Nani, by the way. That's a good story for you. Nani was like, he came into the office and I think somebody had tested positive. I think it was Kamal Miller or somebody had tested positive. And Nani came into the office and said, Mister, his acting calls everybody Mister, Mister, we gotta go because more people will get this. We gotta go now. If we want to win this tournament, let's go. Let's concentrate. You know, what a competitor, Nani, man. What a competitor.
He was one of the best. It leads me on to my next question for you. And this is I think maybe a bit mean to ask you this, but who is your favorite Orlando City player of all time? You might not be one that you necessarily signed. Maybe I was gonna say it's probably Kaká.
No, that's easy, right? That's easy. Cop out.
No, it's not a cop out at all. He's Brazilian legend who played for our club.
Yeah,
So I
man.
mean, did you, when you were at Dallas, did you see that signing where like, wow, was that
Yes.
like a whoa, what a statement
Yes.
kind of signing?
Yes, because that was not a end of career move, right? It was somebody at a high level. It's like Messi was the modern day signing, which was like, really, we got Messi, we the league, right? And literally we because everybody pays for it. But Kaká was just like the human being behind it, right? The fact that I can't imagine Kaká training at Sylvan, at the old Sylvan, right? And still, he was the most professional, always with a smile. I got to meet him after the fact, right? When he was not playing anymore. And what a simple person. What a just very approachable, very open, and you're not successful by accident, man. You know, it's not only what you do on the pitch, it's who you are. I'm going back to that same theme, right? But that applies to players as well. And then from my time was all these guys that I already mentioned that helped build the stuff, right? I know that if I'm gonna start saying names, I'm gonna forget someone. But those guys that came in and that believed in the project and helped us get to where we are today. No, I can't pick one over the next, and they're all really, really important.
You got the really great team that you built out beneath you. And I was gonna ask you who's your favorite staff member, but like you said, it's kind of hard to pick them out. I think you probably got a bit of a soft spot for Ricardo, though. I imagine as your
Yeah,
number two.
we
Can you
built a
talk
lot of stuff
to
together.
your relationship with him? What was that like, kind of training him up to eventually take your job?
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, by the way, we are fans of the same childhood club, so we've had days that we can get together and just cheer for our club back
Is
in
it Flamengo, Fluminense? Which one?
the Flamengo. Done.
Flamengo. Okay, I had it right. Okay, just checking.
But it was great. It was great because Ricardo is very much younger than me. I had a great mentor in Fernando Clavijo in Dallas, which is I still care. He passed away, unfortunately. I mean, I have Fernando in my heart, and Fernando was 13 years older than me, and I think that I'm 15 years older than Ricardo. Boy, I'm old, man. But it was not this. I'm not saying it was the same relationship at all because I mean, Fernando, he was more open to being a mentor than Ricardo, like wanting, or it was just natural, right? There was nothing forced about the relationship and trying to do things to elevate one or to it was just a natural connection and relationship to the point that we got to where we were at the beginning of the year that we made a decision so that we could keep Ricardo because I mean I think everybody could see that the next job that opened up where Ricardo had a very good chance of getting that job away from Orlando. So I'm just happy that the team is in great hands and we continue the work. It's always different, right? That there's no way to compare, not even one year to the next. But I mean the foundation is in place.
I think this one I kind of know a little bit because I have seen you occasionally on game days, and I know you are kind of like a ritual guy. But could you kind of give people an insight into what you do on a game day and kind of like how you dealt with game days? Did you have, a certain routine you needed to do or certain things that were like, oh, I must do this because if not, maybe we'll lose? Are you superstitious like that?
Yeah, well, soccer people in general, they are superstitious, right? If you look at the Open Cup run, I'm always wearing the same pants, the same shirt, all the way through. And my hair is out of control because I said I'm not gonna cut my hair until we win this title.
Well,
So
thank you. We appreciate that.
yeah, and so yeah, but I mean, I like to get to the locker room pretty much before everybody does. I mean, I used to get there second, third. I mean, maybe Oscar was already there, but there's not much that we can actually do on game day other than making sure that everybody is calm, that there's nothing taking people's concentration and mind away from that game, right? Make sure that there's always going to be a curveball, and you got to be in a position that you can control that, right? You can Somebody's going to be late to the locker room. There was an accident on the road where everybody's running behind. Somebody got hurt in warm-ups, what do you as a GM do? Not much really, but you're there providing calm, and trying to make sure that people are, hey, it's okay, it's all good. But yeah, I had my ritual. I like to be in the coach's office. I stepped away when I know that they need their space. I talk to the players. I shake everybody's hands when they come in. Uh, I'm usually not that good on the post game, because I like to give the space to the coaches. And sometimes I feel like you go talking to every player, it's a little bit forced at that moment. But again, everybody's different. Everybody does it in a different way. I like post game to give space to them. We would stay until midnight, 1 o'clock after the games. The security people trying to, guys, get out of
Can
here.
you go home?
And we would be watching the other games or talking about the game, or if we lost and that there was longer conversations. And sometimes you don't want to talk about things right after the game. But we used to be there all the time. And I miss that. By the way, that's one of the things that game day routine.
Yeah.
When I changed my function, now that I was avoiding going to the locker room for many reasons, but and I was watching a game from the business suite and all of that. And I missed that, being all into the game and the competition side. And I'm not good at, small talk and game day. I'm focused on game. Don't come talk to me about, I mean, so yeah, that's a little bit of it.
It's funny. I'm the same way too. I'm like, this is really great, but I need to go watch the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
um, Yeah, I think it's a lot to be said for staff members that now go to the games, and just I think it's not as easy as people would think, because you were so involved and you were there, and like part of you wants to just get up and go do what you used to do, but you also now realize that, oh, I'm just a fan, or I'm taking that kind of backseat. So it is enjoyable. I will say, Luis, it is lots of fun just being able to be a fan too, and not having to, worry about, oh, it's not my job to go and
Yeah.
fix
If
that.
I
I
if
can
I'm if
just
I'm
watch the
still
game.
here, if I'm still here when the season starts, I'll go watch a game in the wall.
Love that.
Home home
Please
opener.
come in
I'm
the wall.
gonna go for
It's
the
a
wall.
lot of fun there. All right, a couple last questions for you. One is quite deep, but what does Orlando City mean to you?
It's funny because we just talked about that, right? And I still carry Orlando City, and I think it's going to be a long time, if ever, if I can, stop watching games and stop caring and stop getting mad if we lose a game, or I think that the whole organization, everything that I and my family was able to get here, is going to stay forever, right? That's what it is. My son is turning 9 now, so got here he was 3, 2. So he's a mad fan. He's a couple with the Rockers and ILF, and he's like, it's gonna be tough for him to stop being an Orlando City fan, right? So I think that it's a very deep question, like you said, but I think that I'm never gonna forget the things that I had here. I love the city, the club. I'm not even gonna mention the club. It's obvious, but um, yeah, it's we'll see. It takes time.
For sure. We appreciated your, goodbye message there. I feel like if anyone hasn't gone and read that, they should go, because you gave a really nice speech there, kind of thanking everybody and your time with the club. So go check that out if you have not. All right, last question, Luis. This one's a bit of fun. Give us your favorite Orlando spot. That might be like a restaurant or a coffee shop or like maybe one of the parks, or where is like, oh, you know what, I really like this. It could be a Brazilian steakhouse, maybe. I'm thinking there's a few in town that are favorites among the Orlando City people.
My favorite Orlando City spot is Interco Stadium.
I like that answer. There you go.
I mean, you live soccer so much, man. It's difficult to. It, a lot of people have hobbies, right? I don't think I have a hobby. My hobby is soccer. People ask, what do you do when you're not doing soccer? I go like, well, I'm watching soccer. It's something
Live, breathe,
completely.
sleep
I actually
soccer.
like sports, so I will watch some football, some basketball, all of that. I just went to Gainesville this weekend. Got my son for the first basketball football weekend for the Gators. But no, it's always going to be something related to soccer. I'm not a park kind of guy. My wife loved the Wet and Wild, not Wet and Wild. That's old time.
I love Wet n Wild too. That's a great shout out. That doesn't exist anymore, but
Doesn't
Wet n Wild.
exist anymore. Yeah, but it's like the water park. What's the name of the water park?
The Universal one, that's really cool. What is it called? Volcano Bay?
No, no, the one I forgot the name now, but they go all the time. Yeah, my wife and my son, they go all the time there, but I forgot the name now. Sorry. I like here being next to the lake, the ponds, the lakes, too. That's always nice. Get a cup of coffee or whatever. There's some good spots. I think the Winter Park, and kind of a bit of far away, but it's great to just walk around, and there's a lot of nice vibes, and it's. I want to say that I was surprised with how much I loved the city of Orlando, actually. And that is a theme that you hear actually from, I talk to some people at the Magic, and they say the same thing. They go like, the players that we select on the draft, they're like, oh, really? I'm going to Orlando in a couple of months here, and they're in love with the city. I must say that I
Yeah.
was, a little bit of, yeah, the city doesn't say much, but today it does. It's really a beautiful city. I mean, gave a lot to my family. Really love the city.
You had a similar experience to me moving from, a Texas town, or like we came from Austin to Orlando to start the team here and not really knowing what it was going to be like. You came from, Dallas as well. I think a lot of that perception from the outside is that Orlando is just the theme park city and like that's all it is. And I always tell people, if you've only gone to the theme parks, you've never seen real Orlando. You've
Yeah,
just seen Disney, right?
yeah,
It's not the same. And I think the amount of lakes and trees here goes underappreciated. It's something where wherever you go in this city, there's greenery and there's bodies of water that you can, walk around and enjoy. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate you for being here, Luis. Thank you so much for sharing your story. There was so much great, anecdotes and information and little tidbits there that hopefully the Orlando City fans who listen to this, hopefully you've enjoyed it and learned a little bit more about Luis. If you did like what you heard, please go ahead and drop a like on the video. You can also give us a rating if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music, preferably 5 stars if you think that's what we're worth. Thank you so much to Luis. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.
thank you, John.